I like it. And then now this satisfies.
Have you heard from Joe?
Yeah.
Okay,
I thought I joked.
ready?
I don't see you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our August 10th, 2022 Planning Board meeting. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Steve.
Chairman John Curry,
Here.
Vicky Gannon,
Here.
Nancy Garbino,
Here.
Dennis McNamara,
Here.
Jack Mattis, here, Bruce Prince, Christopher Zaberto.
Here.
Thank you. First on our agenda is the draft minutes from July 13th, 2022. And they were with some changes. I just wanted to address that. We're going to try to correct that in future going forward. It's my mistake. I should have in the past, when people came up to speak for public hearing, had them spell their name out. Sometimes enunciation isn't clear or whatever. So we'll correct that in the future. But make a motion unless anybody has any additions that we approve the minutes from July 13th, 2022 with the changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
First on our agenda is a project review for Best Plumbing. It was referred to us by the town board as for proposed amendments to special use permit on 49 Route 138. They want to request to modify some existing operations, restrictions on hours of operation, truck traffic, and to add an outside storage area. I'm sure everybody realizes we can't go forward until we actually get feedback from the town. But I think the objective of tonight is to try to just back and forth with us, and maybe we can make a recommendation to the town board. Good evening. Thank you.
Sounds good. We did go to the town board to a public hearing, was it a few weeks ago? And I almost got tonight and tomorrow night mixed up.
Right.
I thought somebody's got these dates wrong, but I got it straightened out. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So what we're looking to do, we have the property on 138 across from JFK High School. And it's our principal business location for all of our other locations.
Sorry, sir. Who are you?
I am Jonas Wiener,
And you represent?
general manager of Best Plumbing Supply, previously the owner of Best Plumbing Supply, and the owner of the property.
Thank you.
Currently the owner of the property, continue to be the owner of the property. And I assume you all have a copy of what we were looking to do specifically. Do you want me to go through it, or will you just address any questions that you have?
I don't know. I was going to let our two consultants go through it. I mean, our two professionals, and then board member comments, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful if Mr. Wiener could just briefly summarize his request to the town board for modifying the special exception use permit
Sure.
conditions. And then that would help set the framework
Fine.
for the discussion. And essentially what the town board is looking for is a review and recommendation back so that they have your input prior to making the decision on the special exception.
Very good. As you know, we've been in the town in business. We bought the building in 2004. We opened in 2007. I believe everybody would agree that we've been a good neighbor and helped with our taxes. And we're just trying to operate a business and continue to operate it with as few encumbrances as we possibly can. So there were basically four modifications that we're looking for. One of them is to permit outside storage, which we're totally screened where we are. I don't think anybody had any issue with us having during our hours of operation, our business hours of operation, having outside storage. And it would be for pipes and tanks and a few other things that would give us more room inside of our building to handle the growth that we're experiencing. That's item 7 from the original list. Item 9, which was a change to a resolution dated 2010. We're looking to change the warehouse and office operations from Monday through Friday to a Monday through Saturday. There would be no trucking activity on Saturday. Showroom only operation is currently permitted. So We already have the permission to operate on Saturday. We're not currently operating on Saturday, but we already have that capability. But we're looking to have our warehouse and office to be open for those hours as well, so that should somebody want to pick something up that they selected in the showroom on Saturday, that we could go get it in the warehouse and put it in their car for them. But there'd be no deliveries, no trucking activities. It would just be our regular customers coming through. So that's one change we're looking for. The other is to change the current open business hours of operation for the warehouse from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. That extra hour would not be, and let me just finish this. This is 1 hour earlier for opening of the warehouse, which would permit us additional time to prepare for our customer orders for shipment and pickup. The store would not be open at 5 a.m. It would just allow a shift of employees, 5 or 6 people, to come into the warehouse and start to get the orders assembled and ready for when we do open. I think there was a bit of a confusion on that issue.
Warehouse activity is all internal.
Internal, totally
I
internal.
have no problem with that.
Absolutely internal. Then change the principal business activity from commencing at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. I mean, plumbing contractors come, people come to make their pickups. We want to change that to 7. And then on item 10, which is trucking activities, we'd like to have the 7:40 to 8:15 truck restriction removed. That's trucks that leave our facility, our trucks, removed, since there's now a light there, which should address any concerns, and I believe do address any concerns for safety as it relates to the high school across the street.
In all fairness, when we did this way back when, there was no light there,
There was not a light.
right?
Exactly. And we put up the blinking lights and everything back in 2004 to 2007. And now that there is a traffic light, which controls the traffic and the safety that goes along with it. And we have 9 trucks. And during that period, maybe 3 leave. So we're not talking about a lot of activity. So, but we've abided by that during the last 18 years. That's it.
Oh, Dave and Steve.
Just, I think some of my initial comments, and this presentation was very helpful because it did help clarify some of the requests made. And I think, as Mr. McNamara pointed out, a lot of the activities that are being proposed are internal to the building, and they're just basically, you're just allowing your employees to enter the site earlier than normal. And I think the other issue is the proposed outdoor storage. And I spoke to the chairman briefly before the meeting. I just scaled it off. It's approximately 650 feet from where you're currently proposing the outdoor storage to the nearest property line. And I think in between there's a significant amount of vegetation.
Yeah.
So those are just some of the considerations that I think the planning board may want to consider as they're reviewing and considering the application.
From an engineering perspective, I believe the septic may be over on that side of the building as well. So we'd want to make sure, especially with moving pipes and larger equipment or, larger materials there, that truck traffic in that area, are you planning to load that pad from the interior of the building or from the outside of the building?
It would probably be both.
Oh, okay.
But we're not quite sure exactly what we're going to build, but we would have to go for approvals.
That would come to site plan. And one of the things that we would review during site plan is just to make sure that there's no truck traffic over a septic
And
system.
we really have a problem if our plumbing supply house didn't have a working toilet.
Thank you for making the connection.
I was going to let you give that joke,
No,
but I couldn't help myself.
Yeah.
Engineers don't make jokes.
Yeah.
That is true.
And neither do planners. And I was going to add that in the event that the town board allows the outdoor storage to commence, Best Plumbing would have to come back to the planning board for a specific site plan application.
Right. Board member, I'm sorry, if you finished the board member comments?
So I just have a question, and most likely for the more tenured folks colleagues of mine on the board. This is an R80 zoning district, right? So
Correct.
how does a commercial establishment, I'm assuming they went for all the variances.
It was commercial to begin with. There was a perfume factory there.
It was a perfect
So
before
it was
the
a
residence.
grandfathered zone, if you will. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the town actually created a special exception use permit for this particular use because it was an existing use within the residential
Got it.
district.
So it or pre-established in the R80 exception use, and none of that has to happen again. We don't have to revisit that for this project.
No,
No, you're just revisiting the specific conditions that are being requested. That's all.
And because these conditions were limitations for the first plan.
Correct. So a lot of them were made because there was no light then.
yes,
Right.
to be
And
fair.
that changes everything. It really did.
To be fair to the applicant, they ended up with what they have currently because the high school was adamant. And they wanted a traffic light and they didn't want more business and, they were concerned for the safety of the children. And what they ended up with was because of the concern of
Children.
The school
Kennedy
traffic
High School.
Yeah.
Being a conflict.
And you'll note that
morning
Kennedy
hours.
High School didn't appear this time.
No.
And it's an entirely different situation. I, for one, have no problem with the extra hour at the beginning.
Nor do I.
In reading the letters from residents that we've been shown to date, it appears that the biggest objection is the beep beep sound of the backup when the trucks are moving.
Yeah.
Is there any way to?
Certainly. For the outside storage, I've kind of narrowed the beep beep down to the potential forklift operation that would be during those earlier hours or on a Saturday. If I had to move a piece of pipe and it would be the beep beep sound. So we would have no issue with either. We can't disable the beep beep sound because that's a safety issue required, but we would not operate outside equipment during those hours. So there would be no forklift during that 5 to 6 a.m. period, or on the Saturday, you could put that restriction or write that restriction in, which would eliminate the truck beep beep or the forklift beep beep.
Did I hear you correctly that we could write that into the permit?
It's I guess
The town board could consider that as a condition of the permit. Yes.
Yeah, it's not a big a problem for us.
Thank you for that answer.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure the neighbors would be glad to hear.
Any other board member comments? So that Dave has some basis to write something back to the town board. If I'm reading this board right, everyone doesn't seem to have any problems with these changes, conditions, whatever you want. Call them. Is that correct?
I mean, if they were gonna open at 5 or 6, then I'd be concerned. But 7, that's in line with what we allow for construction as well.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and the 5 or 6 is just for employees to come in.
exactly. I said,
Right.
if the applicant was asking to open for retail purposes at 5 or 6 a.m., then I'd be concerned.
Yeah, why not?
But it's 7 o'clock is in line with what we allow for construction to begin. So I think there's a logic that makes sense about that.
Yeah.
So, and I think if you can deal with the beeping trucks, if you were to receive delivery from another party. like a truck,
We don't allow truckers in that early because that's when our trucks are going out.
So that'll get rid of it as well.
Yeah.
So then the problem really goes away. Yeah.
Dave, you have the gist?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
What specifically did the town, was there a memo that they drafted to us requesting certain things for us to look into?
No, just our recommendations for tonight or feedback, better
Just
word.
feedback.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
that was included in the cover memo that I had prepared and submitted to your board, along with all the supporting documentation and materials.
I'd
regarding
seen
this
that, but I
application.
was looking for something more specific, like they had concerns about this, that.
No,
The town board hasn't expressed any concerns at this point. They've been taking in the input from Best Plumbing and from the residents, and now they'll consider your comments there were some comments that were submitted as part of the lead agency notification for for the circulations, they'll consider those as well.
I mean, the comment about people who are looking for best going into Whitlock as a result of GPS, that's concerning, but I think it's outside what we could control.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's concerning, but I don't see how we can cure that.
Well, we
So-
suggested just the no trucks sign be put on their street. So don't truck, big tractor trailer is not going to drive into
Right.
a truck. It says no trucks.
Yeah, I've had this issue come up in the village of Buchanan where they have a gypsum board manufacturer, and the truckers get off at an exit before they should and go through the village streets. So that operator has been working with the GPS providers to try and correct the situation, and has put some signage out to say, if you've gotten off at this exit, you've gotten off too soon, you need to go to the next exit and then make your route. So there's some work that could be done by Best to work with the GPS providers to more properly locate how truckers get access to the site.
I just want to check, has Bruce Prince zoomed in?
It's always on.
Okay. I just wanted, in case you want to say anything, any other comments? I think you have enough, Dave, then to kind of summarize what would happen.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And next on our agenda is Erstat Biddle Properties, Inc. It's an application for site plan and wetlands permit approval for a proposed tractor supply at the Sommers Commons Shopping Center, which is on Route 6 and Tomahawk Street. This is actually an application for the conversion of the former home goods space to accommodate a proposed tractor supply, including outdoor display area, garden center, and parking modifications. And for the record, the property is in a CS zoning district. I'm so happy about this. I'd like to start a resolution tonight today.
Yeah.
There we go. We'll jump right into that.
Turn a little bit
Could you turn a little bit?
so we can see it. Good.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Juan Yepes with the firm of JMC. We are the civil engineers for the project here with Wim Biddle of Erstat Biddle and with Matt, who's a representative of Tractor Supply. As you mentioned, this is for the Sommers Commons shopping center located on Route 6 and looking to reoccupy a vacant 2,700 square foot space that was formerly Home Goods with a new Tractor Supply store and its related site improvements. The property is about 4 acres in size, and it's comprised of various one-story buildings, totaling about 204 square foot, 204,000 square foot in gross floor area. There's a mixture of restaurants, retail, medical office, and personal service uses at the site. We're looking to occupy the vacant space. On which is over here, of course, the former Home Goods with the Tractor Supply store. So besides occupying that store, we are looking to build a new 1,500 square foot concrete pad to the north of the building, where there's currently a grass area. There's also a new 3,500 square foot garden center, which would be right here. And we will need to build a perimeter wall around here, about 2 or 3 feet in height, because this pad needs to be at the same level of the building. So we need to do a little cut to accommodate that pad. This concrete pad would be used as a outdoor display area for Tractor Supply. It has a gate on the other side, but it has an 8-foot fence all around it. and a gate on either side with a drive-through lane for customers pickup. They also have other areas where they do outdoor display, and Matt would come up and talk more about what they actually do. But they have trailer sales, so trailer displays, which they would have on this area over here. And on the front of the building, they would also have over here outdoor displays in front of the store. And another item that they do is the gas sales. So there's a new tank that is proposed here for propane tank sales. So with that, I leave Matt to talk more about the specifics of what they do.
Good evening. My name is Matt Darling. I'm representing Tractor Supply tonight. So I'm really just here to answer questions you may have, any questions or concerns, but I think the presentation basically speaks for itself. I've been looking to occupy about 21 or so thousand square feet of inside the former Home Goods, but the outside space, about 15,000 square feet, where they can display some bulky merchandise like some power equipment, some fencing, troughs to feed animals, things like that, things that normally wouldn't be able to fit inside of a store. And then, of course, the propane in the rear for filling up, your tanks for your grills. And then along the front of the store for, some more power equipment, maybe some bales, wrapped bales of maybe shavings, wood shavings, things like that for small animals, things like that. The garden center within the fenced area here, we'll have, year-round sales of plants, tools, equipment to service those kind of plants and be able to maintain them at your home. Power equipment that's sold on the property is not fueled or oiled, so it will not run on the property. Nobody's there pulling a chain trying to get it going. That'll happen when the customer takes it home. The drive aisle through the fenced area, it's very low traffic, maybe one, maybe two pickup trucks an hour at the most during a peak hour. Typically, the gates stay closed all day. The merchandise out there doesn't move very quickly. And when it does, it's moved in bulk. So, there's not a lot of volume. It's more of just when a customer needs something, they're going to need a lot of it, or it'll be a large item that is stored out there. So a very low traffic generation, certainly within the fenced yard, not to mention the entire operation's a very low traffic generator. On a weekend peak hour, there'll maybe be 60 to 70 trips into the center, which I don't have the existing traffic data, but I know that's a lot less than a Home Goods. I mean, that's a lot less than a Home Goods. So I think that the overall center is going to enjoy that. The parking field isn't going to be overused. It'll probably become underutilized, which is good. So I personally, I've built over 50 of these stores, and I've overseen the development of another 3 times that many. So I've experienced the benefits of them moving into existing centers and even brand new centers. And so they are a very low traffic generator. They're a great local use, and they're going to service any need from pets, pet food, pet supplies, lawn and garden materials, things like that. So like I said, I can answer any questions or any concerns you may have about it if you have any.
Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure I understand where it is. Point to the monopole. Point to the monopole.
The monopole?
The monopole.
What are we talking about, monopole?
The cell tower.
Oh, yes, that would be, yeah. Right there.
Okay.
Right here.
Now point to the building that houses the athletic.
The athletics.
Club, or whatever you call it.
Up top.
Right here.
Fine. Okay, now point to the ring road that comes in off of 118. Okay. All righty. Mr. Biddle, is that your road?
Yes.
Right, I thought so. Up to Clayton Boulevard and then the town down to one,
It actually goes all the way.
I know it goes all the way around, so I,
Other pylons on it.
but at the full stop sign at Stop and Shop, it becomes a town road, correct?
We
Yes.
actually own that road. Yeah, we own that road all the way out.
Out to one,
Yeah, here.
well, the town plows it.
Oh, well, I'm sure.
No, it's a town road. Yeah. All right. The reason I brought it up, you talk about your traffic. I'm familiar with your store. We're very happy that you want to locate here. And at certain times of the year, it's very busy. And you're going to be busy in the back of the store. And you're talking about putting some vehicles in the back, correct?
Trailers, yeah, like 4x8, 6x8 low landscape trailers would park back there.
Well, I have concerns about the ring road and the activity on the ring road. A lot of us use that to
Yep.
come in to get to Stop and Shop. And slowly over the years, it's being used for other things that roads shouldn't be used for. I'll give you an example. This summer, there was a graduation of, I guess, little dancers, and they were parked all over the place. And we're soon to have some housing that will be built, which I assume is going to be emptying out onto that road. So I have concerns about that road. And this is not your responsibility, but ours as planners. I have concerns about that road. And I think we need to address it. And whether it should remain a private road or whether we have a responsibility to go beyond that. That just wanted to make that comment.
Well, from Tractor Supply standpoint, I mean,
But I'm
We're-
sorry to intrude on your.
no, it's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up because it's definitely, it's something that it's activity there
It's
that,
an awful lot of activity and it's not always safe.
yeah. I mean, Wing, he's the property owner, but
I just make one comment is that in the truck studies that Tractor Supply has been working with us on. I don't want to say they would restrict themselves to do this, but the logical route in is from here
Right,
to come in, park.
Right.
And then instead of coming out, if you're a trucker and going all the way around, it's an easier route to go out the way you came in.
right.
And
I
that's
understand.
most likely, probably 95% of the activity.
Yes, I understand that. And there's a lot of that going on there now. I mean, we have a bus from Peekskill at the other end of the road that comes in and utilizes the back and makes its U-turn. But there are, as I pointed out, there are other activities, and especially in the summer, that have no place there.
well,
That's not your responsibility at the moment. It's
Well-
just that we need to address that road.
I mean,
Can I
there,
ask a question that's sort of dovetails off of Nancy? With Home Goods previously occupying that space, did they get deliveries the same way? And they use tractor trailers for that? I don't know. I mean, if I recall correctly, when Tractor Supply came here independently to look at another site within this district, in that one undeveloped parcel, they were pretty clear that their deliveries happened once a week,
that's still the case.
and that's still the case.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that would still be the case with this project. Because it's not being built from scratch. They also implied that they design everything themselves and they pride themselves in every store being laid out exactly the same.
Yeah.
Does this property, will that conform with that corporate requirement?
Absolutely. Yep. You have you have the fenced yard off to the side, this 15,000 square foot area, which is actually a little small. They prefer it larger. So they're going to put some of the material in the building. But the overall layout, it conforms with their prototype. They have a give or take 20,000 square foot box store with a 15 plus or minus 1,000 square foot yard. They have the ability to sell propane and trailers and sidewalk display. You take away any one of those things, you don't really have a store. So this really conforms with that. I was involved with the other project, which was being proposed for here. And they had all the same criteria. They had a little more space to spread out. But they're actually, like I said, they're taking a little bit larger, a little bit extra space inside. I think I said 21,000. I think it's more like 27,000. Okay. And as far as this back parking area here, I think you're going to see less activity with the Tractor Supply than before, because right now you have parking stalls where I'm sure Home Goods employees were using, or even I'd say maybe even customers, maybe even overflow from the gym. I'm only guessing, but those trailers are going to sit there, and they may sell 2 or 3 a week at the most. The customers are going to just back right up to them, hook them up, and be gone.
Oh, so they're not delivery trailers. We're not talking about
No.
53-foot,
It's about
These
utility trailers, like landscape trailers.
low boy flat landscape.
No,
Correct.
No box trailers. Those are 6x8s, maybe 6x6s or 5x6s, small trailers
For sale.
for sale. Right. Customer backs up to them. They hitch them up. The customer has to have a hitch, and they have to have them registered before they can take them away. So
I mean, because if you were a truck and you went up that road, isn't it a mandatory right-hand turn? And then again at Miller, the hill that goes up to 6, it's another right-hand turn. It would send you away from 6. I would, if a truck was coming out, I would think they would want to cut across if they wanted to get 6, if they had any
is that full
ambitions at
access?
all.
Is that right out only?
Yeah, I think you have to go right, and then you have to go right again because you can't go up the hill.
I think this is right out only. This is full access.
That'll go left.
No,
Okay.
you
Yeah.
can't make a left-hand
No, I
turn.
think you're,
Is that
On
118
Miller?
right there?
You cannot make a
Or is that
left-hand
6?
turn on Miller Road.
but I think even when
You
you,
can only make a left-hand turn on 118.
Well, there's no light here, that's for sure.
right, I think there's a sign that forces you to take a right when you come out, and then you wouldn't be able to go up. But anyway, but I can't see a lot of
Where
trucks
is-
wanting to go back up there because it
Mr. Biddle,
would
what-
send them back off anyway.
I'm sorry. Where is that, the parking area that you donated for the North Trail path?
That's here.
Okay. And then your project building is that one? Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
Gym's here.
Right.
Supermarket's there.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that you can only turn right on
You
118.
can only turn right
You can only, well, I guess
Yeah.
I've broken down.
on that exit.
No, wait a minute.
That's
When you
definitely
come
made
out
up
the
by
ring
paper.
road, excuse me, when you come out the ring road, you can make a left or a right.
Right?
But when you get to Miller Road, you can only make a right and stay on 118. It's
Right.
against the law to make a left. There are too many deaths.
There-
At both
There's
places.
a sign there, no left turn.
There is.
Yeah, but when you come out,
I don't see it on here unless I'm looking at an old map. I'm on Google Maps right now on the street view, and I don't see any signage indicating that it's,
Yeah.
and actually here's a car right here taking a left-hand turn. So
You can make a
Right.
left-hand turn.
but when you
right
come
there.
out, when
Yeah.
you come out there at the
Obviously,
top,
there-
one of them,
I think we all misunderstood you. You're talking about when you come out. you come
Yes.
down Here.
well,
right?
there's 2 of
This
them.
road.
There's 2 of them. When you come out, out.
118.
Not here. Not here. You can think left here.
Yeah, you
Don't
can
get
make
down
a
here, you don't think right.
yeah, I have a picture here. I mean, maybe it's missing. I don't see it. Maybe this
Yeah.
picture was taken before the sign went up, but
Next time you're over. there.
yeah. Because I think you could even go straight into another parking lot or something,
Yeah.
but
Well, the good news is you get 1 truck a week we have to worry about.
Exactly. Yeah, no, no.
if they have to go all the way
I
around,
don't
they
think
can.
anybody, they're gonna want to go there anyway.
They want to come up and speak out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
My question is, I think you said 21,000 square feet.
27 inside.
So it's the same footprint for both.
No,
I thought that it sounded like Tractor Supply was a little smaller.
Just a
footprint.
smidgen.
the home goods is 30,000 square feet right now.
Mhm.
And Tractor Supply is leasing 27,300. The small little piece that's left over
That's what I'm wondering
is
about.
gonna be
yeah.
right in this corner.
Yeah.
next to
Uh-huh.
Goodwill.
Excellent. Good, good. Okay, sounds like a good,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah, they're gonna wrap around that, so they still have access to the loading dock. So, thankfully, the landlord's not cutting us off from that back loading area.
Nice guy.
Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah.
He's all right. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's, as the engineer stated, we have to regrade this grass area a little bit. This side little parking area is a higher elevation, and we're gonna want to make this entire side lot the same elevation at the top of floor as the store, so customers can walk in and out without needing to step up or down. And then, this will become a concrete pad that will facilitate the merchandise out there. And it will need to be wrapped with a fence that will keep, merchandise in there at night. And, the fence will be a little taller, but it'll be very aesthetically pleasing. We'll make it look really good. And
We were asked to query your 8-foot fence.
Yep.
And I don't know why we're,
I think that's when we have Dave's comments. I think that's going to be addressed.
Yeah, the issue with the 8-foot fence in the code, there's a limitation on fence height of 6 feet, and you're
Yep.
proposing 8. So the question is, you can still propose the 8-foot fence, but I think at that point,
Variance.
the planning board would have to refer you to the zoning board for a variance.
Yep.
On the fence height. So that's,
We're
Going
going
is that fence going to be on top of the wall?
well, we'd like it to be, yeah, because we don't want one side of the fence to be 5 feet tall.
6-foot fence on a 3-foot wall is 9 feet right there, right?
Well, yeah, but unfortunately on this side, that would mean it's only still 6 feet. And Tractor Supply is going to need at least 8 feet. In some areas, it may even be a little taller than that, but we can propose that. We're going to propose it because Tractor Supply is really, they just can't live with a 6-foot. People can jump over it. There's a lot of merchandise in there, and so I think that as an exchange, we'll make the fence look as aesthetically pleasing as we can, and we'll do it right. But it'll be a little taller. They're on their newer stores, they're doing 16-foot fences, to make the fence the height of the building all the way around. But you're going to want it at least 8 feet. In some areas, maybe even a little bit taller, just because they do store merchandise back there. And you don't want the merchandise to be seen over the top of the fence. So
pardon me for asking a stupid question. I'm not arguing the need of a fence, but if you had a 16-foot fence, remembering being young at one time, isn't that an invitation to climb?
well, I don't think they've had that problem yet. We all said that about the pet wash stations. They have these pet wash stations, bathtubs inside of the store, and when they first, for self-washing your animals, they don't do any grooming, or they just allow you to bring your pet there. You can wash them, which is a huge plus because, pets shed. And if you wash them in your own bathtubs, you're going to clog up your drain. Well, they have these here with these special filters on there. So the gray water's clean. But, we are always joking like, well, as soon as you put these in here, you're going to have people going in there and washing themselves. And so, but that never happened. So do they scale a 16-foot fence? It hasn't happened yet. I'm sure there's always a first, but they're not asking for that here, and they won't. I think they're going to shoot for an 8-foot fence if they can. And the front, or let's say the front or the back where the elevation is lower, it may have to be an 8-foot fence on top of maybe a little 2-foot wall or something like that, or that part of the fence maybe 10 feet, just to make sure that the top of the elevation for the fence is all uniform. But it'll look really nice. I mean, I don't think you can have any problem approving it when you see it. We're in a commercial area, so I think that that regulation was probably geared more towards a white picket fence between neighbors. You don't want 16-foot wood fences blowing over on people, or 8-foot wood fences blowing over on people. So they're going to be cemented into the ground with probably 3-inch posts that aren't they're not going to go anywhere.
I think 8 foot sounds perfectly reasonable. Do you know what the height is of the wall around the cell tower? I know it was particular. It had to be made of the same material.
Yes.
We were doing like 3 towers at the same time.
Right.
Some had chain link. This had to be the same material as the rest of the building. About how high is that wall?
I'm just guessing. Yeah, it's at least as high as my, so that's at least 9.
Yeah, so
Well, it's brick.
Fence, and it was solid because.
I'm sorry, could you, if you're going to respond, could you just identify yourself? Thank you.
Sorry, Andy Albrecht, Erstad Middle Properties. That's about a 10-foot fence. It was solid because the objective was to screen the equipment and the mechanicals inside there.
correct. And we wouldn't want to duplicate that here, but I think in terms of size and scale, I think it speaks to how reasonable the request is for
Yeah, I
Tractor
don't think it
Supply to
would
do
be
that.
like
No
see-
problem with it.
And the
We've been
cell,
there already in height. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine.
yeah. And
No,
remember that cell tower enclosure is very ominous because some of it's brick,
yes.
some of it's that wall, picket wall. So it really
Yeah.
is, big when you look at it.
No, this will be better.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of scale, I think we're fine in scale. When you think of that, we've already gone there. So.
Dave and Steve, why don't we review your comments, please? Or why don't you present? I'm sorry, do you have anything else to say?
Wait, you wanna?
I guess the only thing that I wanted to say is that we think this is a great use for the center.
It doesn't really compete with anybody. All the owners, this is a commercial condominium complex, Stop and Shop, or there's another landlord. Everyone's very much in favor of this being here. And it's a great use. Anytime we can reutilize a building, it's great. And there aren't that many users of this size building. So this is a really good match, I think. And it's I had only been in a few Tractor Supplies in my life, and I went to one to check it out about a month ago when this process started. I went in to just check it out, and I came out with about $300 worth of stuff. I couldn't help myself but buy it. So it's got a lot of good things to buy in there. So
You do have a choice pet
there is a small, yes,
do
there's a
have
small,
a-
yep, the choice
in there
pet.
now.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
And this building's gonna stay one story, right?
Yes.
Okay. I had to ask.
They don't want two-story Tractor Supply.
Yeah.
Dave,
Yeah, so I think the applicant has provided some direction as to how they want to address the fence issue so that there will be a referral there to the zoning board. And just so that you know, this application has already been referred to the ARB and the Bureau of Fire Prevention. So they could at least provide some initial review and comments. We haven't gotten anything back yet, but as soon as we do, we'll provide that to you. I think one issue that is we need to talk about a little bit is the parking, and the applicant has provided some parking calculations in the memo that we prepared and submitted to you and provided to the applicant. The numbers are a little bit all over the place, and I think part of that is because the facility was approved back in '99. And there was a certain parking count with this proposed application. They're slightly under that, but I don't think it presents a problem. I think that in the code, and I cited the specific section, that the planning board can waive the parking requirements, provided that they have some understanding of kind of the fluctuation of the parking demands. And typically for these types of facilities, the parking demand isn't all at one time. There's variations so over the course of the day. And so what we're suggesting is that if the applicant could provide us with some type of a fairly basic parking utilization survey during the course of the day of how parking is utilized. And I suspect that all of you have been there at some point in time.
Oh,
And you could probably relate that, well, has it ever been completely full?
No.
Right. So I think that there is, nobody wants to see more parking than has to be provided.
Correct.
Nobody, the over parking, I think, is something that from a planning perspective, we've all been trying to get away from and trying to right size the plan. So I would suggest that perhaps with this information, we could collectively resolve the parking issue through the waiver program. The other issue I think that's important, and part of one of the suggested actions that we're suggesting for the planning board tonight is to declare your intent to act as lead agency under seeker. There are other interested and involved agencies here. We just talked about access in and out, so DOT would be notified. I think the one critical piece in my mind is that there's ongoing monitoring by New York State DEC. So I want to put them on notice that there's this application and that part of the site falls kind of within their
Drainage area.
oversight. So I think that's part of the benefit of going through the notification process. It allows everybody an opportunity to understand what's being proposed and to give the planning board some initial feedback as this application makes its way forward.
The proposed propane filling, does that create another special circumstance? Or that's not something that we legislate or regulate?
No, that shouldn't create any undue circumstance. And that's part of the reason why I suggested that the Bureau of Fire Prevention be provided a copy of the application because of that particular use. So that, and having reviewed other applications like this, there are certain building code standards that need to be incorporated, but I thought it would be helpful to have their oversight as part of that particular operation of their facility.
Yeah, about the DEC, we have been in contact with them already and working actively with them. And they have expressed no objection to this proposal and to putting the concrete pad over their pump and treat area. What they have on those locations are some monitoring wells and some what they call recovery wells where they took samples from. Those will remain as part of this. They will just be put in little manholes that you just take the cap off and they'll be able to access. So we've been coordinating those aspects with them.
Steve?
Oh, I'll defer to Jack.
Oh,
That space that's a void in the floor plan toward the front, the 3,000 square feet, I think you referred to. In looking at the elevation drawing, there is no access to that space. And I see no interior access to that space. So are we to assume that's just going to be a void? It will not be yet another business?
No, it's intentionally designed to be shallow enough to not require a rear access by fire code. So those would be there were stores that we in the front or within service. Think like a nail salon or something.
Right. So I didn't see any indication of an opening, an entryway in the facade.
That will be subject to a separate building permit application. And we would be putting in a new entrance there, storefront entrance in that area.
And that won't infringe upon Tractor Supply's pretty signature facade layout in the front.
No, it's fine.
The
I'm trying to see it on my phone. It's so small.
It's not shown here, but there's a peak here. They're gonna use that as a storefront
Right.
in their signage.
I see.
And then there is a facade along this part that will have signs on it for this area.
Got it. Okay.
Another question, if I may, and again, Mr. Biddle, this goes to you, and it's not directly germane to Tractor Supply, but we have another proposal on our agenda tonight, which is for the charging stations from Volta. Are they in the proximity of where Tractor Supply is going to build that new concrete pad?
No. Maybe both.
no.
I think they're over by Stop and Shop. Yeah, I believe.
They're by the
That's
gym.
the other
They're in front of the
station
gym.
We're making, Stop and Shop is actually the impetus of that. The Stop and Shop has a deal sort of globally with that company to put these units in, but we had to apply because we're the owner of the property. So
Okay, the site that they suggested for a site visit in Ridgefield, Connecticut is in front of a Stop and Shop.
Yes.
So that's a very similar proposal then to what we could expect when we do get to Volta, and it won't apply to this part of the year.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
thought that was going in front of the gym.
Yeah, but it's not, it's going in front of Stop and Shop.
It is?
Yeah.
That's what he just said.
No, he said it, but I thought Volta said they were putting it in front of the gym.
Volta
The New
said-
York Sports Club. It was
Yeah.
going to
It's
that
at
side.
Sports code, yeah.
Could be.
That's why I don't know.
I'm not.
No, I get that. That was just,
I know that it's not, has no conflict with this.
That was my question. That's it.
If I can, not to belabor the issue, but the parking, so I believe you have probably a site plan on file for the previous application, and you can look at the parking there. Tractor Supply only wants 65 spaces. Now, usually we have to give them more because towns require more. But that application probably had pretty close to 65, maybe 80 at the most. I can't quite remember. So that'll show you how little the parking impact is going to be. There's well over that capacity and just in the front, let alone all the other parking all the way around it. So the parking is going to be, we're happy. I'm sure he's going to provide the data, but that data will show that the impact will be minimal.
I agree.
Can you discuss a bit with the added impervious surface, what your thoughts are around stormwater management?
So we have been doing we've been talking to DEP about that too. We reached out to them since this is going to be less than 1 acre of disturbance. They consider this a minor project. So we would only need to do, they really said anything you could provide. So we would do a water quality structure and some kind of detention, whether it's realizing the existing pond, which I know you guys had a comment about that. We are looking into how that pond stands, or in case that won't work, then it's separate detention system, and looking to do it somewhere in this front area. So just treat the water and put it there, or treat the water and bring it to the existing pond.
Since it's more than 5,000 square feet of disturbance, there are some local stormwater requirements. And please let me know if you have any questions on those. We would like to see those with an updated material. We'll issue a comment letter shortly that will note that requirement. How about construction staging area for something like this in an existing shopping plaza? What are the thoughts on, whether bringing in, concrete for those pads and staging of materials, for the interior fit out? Is there a thought on where that might be staged in the facility?
Well, what we've been negotiating with Tractor Supply is an area in this area would be a temporary construction staging area, materials up right here in their parking field, where it wouldn't annoy anybody else while they were working. So that's all that would be required.
Do you think that's significantly, what would the size of that be relative to the anticipated parking use of 65 spaces? Are you thinking it's going to be 200 spaces of staging area, or is it in that same order of magnitude?
It's 2, 4, 6, at the most 40 spaces in this area.
Okay. Less than the parking requirement of the facility.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really would be, that would all be cleared out by the time the facility opens.
Thinking about the trade-off of space in time. Those are my comments at this time.
Any other board member comments or questions? Board feel comfortable declaring ourselves to be lead agency?
Yes.
Yes.
You tend to act as-
You intend to act as, and this will be a type 2 action.
No, it's actually,
No,
this would be considered an unlisted action under seeker.
Okay. I make a motion that we declare ourselves intent to be lead agency for a coordinated review as, what did you, it was a what?
Second.
No, but I want to get the wording right.
unlisted.
Unlisted
For an unlisted action.
for unlisted action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And
you very much.
you want to have a formal referral at this time for them to go to the zoning board for the fence? Or do you want to?
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, you're gonna have to do it at some point.
Yes.
You might as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Just make
make a motion that you get yourself on the agenda for the zoning board for the fence. That would be a special, that would be a waiver too, wouldn't it?
Oh, there it is.
would be a, yes, would be a waiver from the zoning code. Right?
Yeah. Because the
Second.
current,
Parking issue you can
'Cause
do on your own.
the current is 6, so they need a waiver. All right. So is there a second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't need parking. They're gonna get more foot traffic than they are
Correct.
vehicular traffic.
Correct.
Most of those sites have been dedicated destination sites.
Right.
This is not.
And keeping what Dave's saying, we need to go down that road with less parking
Yeah.
spots. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Dave? I mean, we're trying to,
Right side.
going along with what you sent out last week or the week before.
It's a lot better than a 5-story apartment building.
Or a 3 or a 2. Next on our agenda is, I guess it's really just a board discussion on the Volta charging station. Their application was to for site plan modifications, the installation of 2 EV charging stations at Sommers Commons, 80 Route 6, Baldwin Place. You guys want to lead this?
Yeah. So at the last meeting, Joe, are you on the, can you hear us? Joe Ariel?
I am, guys.
There he is. Okay. So after the last meeting, there was some discussion about whether the display on the charging station constituted signage. And so the request was to potentially ask for an interpretation from the building department and to have Joe involved with that process. So Joe and I, Tom Tuma and I called Joe and we had a discussion, and we needed to have some additional input from Joe to help guide Tom on his decision. So I think, Joe, that's really kind of where we left it. And we're just kind of looking for some additional input from you to help Tom make his decision and interpretation on that particular issue. I don't know if you want to kind of go over your notes about our discussion, but that's kind of where we left it at this point. I thought it's just a very quick discussion item for the planning board to give them an update as to where we are in the process.
Yeah. So first of all, from just a fundamental zoning law perspective, and this is echoed in your code, but it's also a state law concept. When there is a perceived lack of clarity about how to interpret the zoning code, the first sort of gateway arbiter in those discussions is your building inspector. They, basically, if people aren't sure, they ask. The building inspector will then either say, you need a variance, you don't need a variance. My interpretation is that this is or isn't that thing. And I don't mean that they, in other words, and I'm sure many of you know this, but I just, for the benefit of the public as well, I just want to say this. It is sometimes a process that is tied up in the variance process itself. In other words, somebody comes in, they have a sense that they maybe need a variance. There might be some questions about how to interpret certain sections of the code. And in the context of the variance that they are relatively confident they have to apply for, there'll be discussion about how to interpret those provisions. But the law does allow for a straight up zoning interpretation. In other words, an applicant can just go in and say, I'm not sure what this means, and make an argument, of course, as to what they think it means. And then the zoning officer issues an opinion. And just like with an application that may require a variance, if one side or the other does not agree with that determination, then the next level, the appellate level of that decision is the ZBA. And we go from there, right? Then it falls into the same category. If people want to challenge from that, you could go to the state Supreme Court, et cetera. So that's the setup here. That's why it seemed to me, from a legal perspective, that's what you're faced with here. Now, I will say, and of course, I don't want to speak for the other two folks that were very engaged and knowledgeable on the call. As you were just told. And so they should chime in as well. And the building inspector, frankly, should not chime in until he officially chimes in, because that's his role. But my sense of it is that at the very least, when these code provisions were written, they did not envision something like this being a sign. It just doesn't, the definition just doesn't, it doesn't apply to what this is, so to speak. And you may actually have that more handy than I do as I'm looking at my notes here, if you want to reacquaint the board with it. But anyway, I think it's at least reasonable to say that there is ambiguity about whether this is a sign at all when you read the definition. One of the reasons for that is that it's like many things that require interpretation. There's a very slippery slope on this, where if this is a sign, then we potentially we could categorize everything that gets hung in the window of a retail store as a sign, like the price of milk, or that we have breakfast sandwiches, against their sign total, and try to make it conform to their sign requirements of the town. And I think the clear difference, and this of course is a sign of the modern age, right, is that this is an electronic display. Myself, and I'm only speaking for myself, where these things will be located do not strike me as being a particular nuisance or distraction, certainly for traffic, vehicular traffic. I think also, if you want to go on a slippery slope in another direction, although these screens tend to be smaller, it's also something akin to the little movie reels and entertainment snippets and news snippets that you now see at gas stations. They're bigger, sure, but here's my point. We could go on and on about this, and I know what the arguments on the other side are too, right? But the point is, it is not so self-evident that, in my view, we should not let the zoning officer do that first level job. And at the same time, it may be prudent, just like when cell towers were first being turned into applications, everybody was trying to, keep out the barbarian hordes while they figured out how to actually define something they had never seen before, right? I don't. That's unfair to the applicant, because I don't want to characterize these as offensive, but the point is, it may be prudent to also recommend to the town board that almost no matter what your zoning officer says about this interpretation, there's going to be a decent argument on the other side. Myself, I think the argument falls in favor of it not being a sign, but it begs some clarification, I think, or at least consideration of whether clarification makes sense. So I think there's two paths. I don't necessarily think it would be fair to the applicant to make them wait for a legislative action. And of course, the applicant should chime in here too to see whether they've had further discussions or whether they view that as an appropriate approach. But that's my little primer on that. And obviously, I'm happy to answer questions.
Which are two things that there's no representatives from the applicant tonight, because this is kind of just a discussion. But I think this board is in complete agreement. We're just a little worried about opening up a can in the town. Once something somewhere, where do you stop? How do you? I'm just assuming it went forward. How do you stop the next applicant?
Right. So here's what I think with respect to the application that's pending before you now. You have a planning function, obviously, right?
Right.
And whether or not these things were deemed appropriate on the site via variance, via zoning interpretation, or via it turned out nobody cared, right? I mean, like, whatever the case may be. I think where your focus should be is on legitimate planning concerns about whether there are site planning issues. And I'm not suggesting that there aren't. I'm not trying to put any ideas about that in your head, that you've always been very good at that, and you should continue to do what you do. I think the balancing, here's the other issue. This is the other practical reason why I think it begs addressing on a higher level while you review it as a site plan, right? And just say, I mean, I'm making stuff up here, but let's make sure it doesn't have significant, let's make sure it's got glare protection. I don't know, whatever, that they're oriented in such a way that they're never higher than this. I don't know, right? But in the bigger picture, I think like sort of maximum limitations that occur, it could make some sense. Those kinds of things, right? But I know what I was going to say. The other reason I think it begs a legislative solution at some point in the near term, is because this is, and this is one of the things that makes the cell tower narrative applicable as well. The reason those applications became controversial and eventually, developed just a standard across the board is because it was determined that it was a public good that the public wanted, right? And so, and so we had to make provision for it. And this is one of those issues, I think, that has arrived. And frankly, the model that they've proposed sounds, I am literally, I think tomorrow going to pick up my electric car, it sounds like a model that's interesting for that matter. And as they have explained to you, it's unique in that it makes the service itself free to the public. So it's going to be one of those things that's going to be hard to get in the way of in a fundamental way, because I think you'll then end up with potentially a sense that you're standing in the way of almost, I mean, it won't rise to this level just yet, but I see it on the horizon, almost like a public utility. So my advice to the planning board is that what will happen if you continue to process this application from a planning perspective, make your comments on where you think they can make certain accommodations that would be wise or prudent, right? In the worst case scenario, from your perspective, somebody will challenge that, and that will simply force the question both at the legislative level, the zoning officer level, the ZBA level, and potentially at the court level. I'm not suggesting that's where it will go, but my point is you should not go out of your way to manage the potential outcomes of how you review this. I think you should review it as a planning matter. And, but I do think it would be wise for the applicant to seek an interpretation, to put that issue to bed. That might frankly start the ball rolling toward the legislature taking some interest in it, because I got to tell you, it's a tough position for your building inspector to be in. And so anyway, I don't want to just go over old ground. Ask other questions if you have to.
Well, there's been some comments in the past, just like loose comments, like it doesn't really belong in this town. Don't like the look of it. So if I'm interpreting what you're saying, that's not going to hold up, because we have to approach it a little more as a planning.
That's exactly that's the kind of argument that I think is the most likely argument to fail. And
it's the wave of the future is this type of element being installed for electric cars. And it is providing illuminated and vocal advertisement. And we should start the ball rolling, for legislation to control the sound and size of such advertising. I don't see any problem with that. You just have to start someplace, but we really need to legislate it. We just don't ignore it. It's not going to go away. It's here. And let's deal with it. We'll still make a recommendation that people better than us come up with a good legislation to control the size of the illumination and the sound.
I can promise you they won't be smarter than this board, but if they take a hard look at it, I think they'll come up with some pretty reasonable. It's not like other towns haven't started to face this. There are resources for thinking it through. And frankly, the applicant, it doesn't have to
ignore it,
right? The applicant may have insight too, into what the sort of tipping points are on various things, et cetera, so.
Joe, you'd think that the applicant would have a piece of model code And
I-
that would also
They do.
help advance. Yes.
They've already prepared model ordinances.
So they
Oh,
have
good.
that's
Other towns.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's
right.
good.
Jack had a comment.
Two comments, if I may. First of all, I went to Volta's website and it's easy to find. If you go to their website, they define these units as billboards. Their word, not mine. They define what they are placing where the charging station is as a billboard. So that qualifies it immediately in my mind as signage.
Yeah.
I've been in the related business. I know what signage is. All right. And a sign is a sign.
Because they want to sell advertising.
Right.
That's,
Which is why,
that's the second part of my comment, if I may. Joe, I believe you stated that this would be free to the consumer, to the vehicle owner. I don't think you're correct. I clearly remember the representative of Volta stating that it would start out as free. However, if their advertising revenue is not generated to the level that they anticipate needing, they would assess a charge for the service. So I don't see it as free.
Well, but that, of course, is their argument for why they need this, right? They don't want to do that. And so let me just look, the bold points that you make are, no, what I'm saying is they are trying to avoid charging people. In order to do that, they need to generate enough advertising space, and their model, at least, I'm not saying we have to buy it hook, line, and sinker, but their model suggests that there's a certain size, frequency, et cetera, that accomplishes that goal. Both your points are excellent. Let me speak to why they're not as straightforward as we might otherwise like them to be. First of all, you can't make something it's not by using the word for it. And I don't think, now I will tell you, by the way, it's a great catch by you, and they should be ashamed of themselves for using the word. Because I mean, I just think I don't think in a public meeting they would say that in a million years, and I think that's a very unfortunate use of that word. But a thing still has to be what it is, right? Like if I call a dog a cat, I don't make it a cat. And I don't mean to be flippant about it. I'm just saying it's still the definition that rules. And when you read the definition in your code, it is, I promise you, not as clear. And I tend to think leans the other way. The other thing is that I hate it's such an overused word, but I do think there's something to it. There is a slippery slope involved if you qualify this as a billboard or a sign. And that goes back to one of the points I made earlier, which is, all right, well, then what's not a sign? Right? Like when we approve signs for a site, right. When we approve signs for a site and we say, well, you can't have more than this many square feet of signage and it's got to be here and here and here. All right. Well, now, what if I put up an A-frame sign or 3 of them? Or what if I just post posters in the window of my store? And they're all, 4 by 3, posters. And when you add them all up, it's nothing but signs. It's like Times Square on paper, right? So like, I'm just thinking of the typical 7-Eleven or something along those lines. As I always say, I'm not telling the town of Sommers what they ought to want. And if that slippery slope doesn't bother you, it's okay. I'm just saying I think it should be legislatively intentional. And because right now, I think the code is unclear on this point. And I don't think that this will be the only model you ever see for these stations either. So even if we were to figure out something on this one without addressing the larger issue, you might get another one, 10 weeks from now that's got a whole different idea of what works and what doesn't, right? So that's all I'm saying. I would never tell, as I said, this has always been one of the smartest boards I've ever worked with. you never make a point that doesn't make sense. I mean, like, really. I'm just saying, if I could tell you, yep, you're right, then we wouldn't have anything to talk about. And I think there's enough here to make that unclear. And unclear is bad. It makes bad law. You know, it makes bad sites. So that's just my thoughts. Again, I'm just the lawyer, and as I said, every point you guys have made, including these last two, have been fine. I get it.
So Joe, this is Vicky. So you could have a charging station with an appurtenant thing that someone would consider a sign, or you could have one without, and we drive around and we see ones clearly without that exist. Are you suggesting, perhaps by what you're saying or not saying, that it would make sense to have legislatively a definition of a charging station that would address the circumstance of both with and without, I don't want to use the term accessory use, another usage
Display.
displayed toward
Right.
it?
You could call it display regulations associated with these things, because as you know, the advent of these charging stations also changes what we all used to think of in parking lots too, right?
So
I
you
mean-
focus on it's the regulation of the provision of the service, the charging,
Correct.
not a regulation of the display.
So-
And exactly, you're suggesting the lens through which to look at this that makes it clearer.
It does make sense because, and I'm not suggesting that, you know, section sub B in that new code section shouldn't just flat out say signage at a charging station. I'm not saying that we need to be cute about it, but I do think you're right that by addressing the use, there is a clear intent and fairness about it that is unchallengeable. In other words, you're not saying you can't come into our town. Because let's say that your code gets interpreted such that this kind of charging station and this kind of model for a charging station can never be in your town. You know, that's where you start to get into this, you know, dangerous is a strong word, but, you know, from a zoning and legal perspective, dangerous territory of, well, am I zoning out a use now? That you know, those kinds of things. I don't want to go too far down. I don't think we're quite there yet. But again, this is a major industry. They will hire people to fight this out. I'm not saying this applicant is in that posture, by the way. They've been extremely gracious and polite. I don't want to suggest anything about them in particular, but you know, these things they will have to sort it out. You know, it's one way or another. They're not going to take their ball and go home, you know?
So my concern now, and you've illustrated some very valid points that are easily digestible for us as being non-legal eagles. My concern would be now what happens when a soda machine company now, because we're equating a charging station sign, a digital sign attached to it. There are multiple hundreds, maybe thousands of unmanned business kiosks, if you will, stations that provide a service that do not require a brick and mortar store to be there, right? Soda machine, a red box, a vending machine. So what stops Redbox? And if Redbox, you used to be able to get DVDs out of it. I don't even know if they're still in business. Hey, but let's just put a movie screen up next to it because, you know, that's attached advertising the movies that we want to sell. So I think we're at a very critical point right now to Joe's point that there needs to be some sort of legislation that incorporates clarity into this, right? The electronic display, let's call it that. So any billboard, sign, vestige, neon, comma, electronic device will be approved by the Architectural Review Board or require this or require that.
Yeah.
Because I think that we would set a precedent if we allow this to go forward. It's not the charging station. And Joe, you made a comment about this being public good. The charging station is the public good, right? There's an increase in electric vehicles.
You're right.
The US, or the globe, really is pushing towards cleaner energy. And yes, charging stations are like what was in the precipice of cell phones pushing forward, sort of new technology that it's going to take a little while for all of us to embrace and appreciate the infrastructure that's required for that. So I'm not going to debate that the charging station is for the public good, but the 55-inch electronic display that goes with it, that is a unique business model for the applicant, is not in public good. That is for them to offset and subsidize the cost that they have to lay out, whether it's to not charge the consumer or to discount the consumer. And so I think that's where we as a town need a little help from other legislative entities within the town to say, hey, the planning board has uncovered a very good case here for this to be debated on another level, because it is gray.
Yep. I think it's a very astute point. And like in my little lawyer brain now, what I see is a section of law that has a broader title that talks about, I'll just use a few words that you used and a couple that I did. And it, of course, doesn't have to be this. We're all doing this off the top of our head. But it would be a section of law that would be called, retail outlets not on individual lots, and unmanned, right? Like, I mean, whatever, those kinds of concepts. Under that, you could take into consideration exactly how you needed to write and accommodate for all these different things. And one of those provisions could be no such structure, whether it's an electronic charging station or a giant vending island, right? Relief center, right? It can have electronic or illuminated signings bigger than its XYZ. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And as I've said before, the legislative body may disagree. They may come up with a whole different way of approaching it. But I think it just does, I think, have to be intentional, as I said, right? Because you want to strike the balance, as you just correctly stated, because we're all here about, like, planning and zoning is about regulation that is properly balanced in the interest of the public welfare.
That's why I'm here.
Right. I mean, like in 1920, when the first zoning cases came out, people were outraged by the idea that anybody should be able to tell them what they can do on their 3 acres, right? And it does seem on its face bananas, right? So why did we allow it? Because we live in an ordered society and there ought to be some balance there, right? So these are the things you want to take, a broad approach to thinking it through, so you don't cut off your nose to spite your face, and you are operating in the public good. As I said, you are still potentially left. This is why I think the applicant should go to the and we missed each other this week. We exchanged phone calls and missed each other. But I think the applicant should go to the zoning officer and simply request an interpretation at however they want to frame it. Because the answer will set the game, if you know what I mean, right? If they get the answer they want, they just go forward. And if somebody wants to challenge that, they challenge it. Meanwhile, the town board can be working on whatever they're working on for the next set of applications. If they get an answer they don't like, they go to the ZBA. And again, we're in the game and we're having those conversations as the law intended. And otherwise, I think they're spinning their wheels too. You guys know this very well. You always get this right. You are not the arbiter of this. And I will tell you too, if they were to say to you, hey, we'd like you to review this site plan anyway, it's my opinion that you could do that. You would just put on the record that they were clearly doing it at their own risk. And by risk, I mean paying their consultants to respond to you, come to meetings, et cetera, when it's not even 100% clear they can do what they want to do. But if they wanted to do that, they could do it. And as long as you were on the record saying, all right, we'll give you our comments, but you've got to sort out whether this is a lawful use.
I think, all right. I think we still got 3 resolutions. I'd like to wrap this up. I mean, my head's spinning even more. I appreciate all your work, but
Well, I think the
I
direction
think what he's saying is that
the
the best
applicant needs
is
to go to.
you get in touch with them and try to encourage them to go for legislation.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I will do that, and I will put it in writing as well, so that we don't lose any more time just playing phone tag. I'll just write it. I'll copy your planning staff, et cetera. And I'll write it tomorrow. And by the way, in my capacity as the planning board attorney, it's really recommendatory at best. In other words, and I will say this, we are not the party charged with interpreting this. Really, what I'm going to basically say to them is, you guys are paying lawyers. You have to decide the best way to proceed. Here's a suggestion. But you can't just keep knocking on the door. It's
Right.
like when you in the fridge over and over again, hoping there'll be something better to eat in there.
I do that. It never works.
All the time.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. Any other board member comments or Dave or Steve?
I think that direction.
Thank you, Joe. We lose him?
No, I'm here. I
Oh,
said
okay. No, I just thank you again. Appreciate it very much.
I appreciate the opportunity to chime in. I will reach out to them tomorrow. I'll
All
copy
right.
you, Chairman, and I will copy your planning staff.
Thank you
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have 3 resolutions to vote on. Before we do, I just want to say thank you, Dave, for the hard work getting these out in a very, very timely fashion. Our first one is resolution 2022-07, which is a grant of conditional final conservation subdivision approval and stormwater management and erosion sediment control for steep slopes permit. This is for the Mascaccioni Brothers, located at 2 Mohawk Point, and their subdivision application is TM 36.12-2-6. Have you been waiting in the wings or anybody? Oh, there you are. Any board discussion on this?
No.
No,
You didn't find anything, Vicky?
I was going to say, it was clean,
Wow.
wonderful resolution.
That's a first.
Yay.
Trust me.
That's
Thank you.
compliment.
That's a trust. That's a first. There is a first. All right, then I make a motion that we accept resolution 2022-07 as presented. Well, I just said it for the 2 Mohawk Point subdivision.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go.
Does the resolution include the seeker determination?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
part and parcel? Okay,
Yes.
thank you very
Thanks.
much.
You're very welcome.
Next is resolution 2022-06, the grant of conditional preliminary and final subdivision approval for a lot line change to 380 Route 202. Town tax number, excuse me, section 17.11-2-18 and 19. Any comments on that? No?
Good to me.
I make a motion and we accept this resolution.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Want to do this one now or wait till next meeting? No, just kidding. Resolution 2022-05, the grant of conditional site plan approval, steep slopes protection, tree preservation, stormwater management and erosion sediment control permits to the Sommers National Golf Club for Sommers National Golf Club site plan, town tax number 6-6.17, block 20, lot 1.21. Any comments?
No comments.
I just want to, well, the box kind of get out of control on my copy, but that's fine. I want to thank Dave for capturing the timeline and all that went on with this application. I know that the application should change in character and that the second attorney for the applicant, Linda Whitehead, I think she described it at one point as essentially a new application. But I think that it really made sense to capture all that happened and memorialize that so that it's on the record. So thank you, because you did a great job and
Amen.
people in the future can benefit from this.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And
And I'm not disagreeing. I understand why Linda said that.
Let's not build them up too much tonight, right? I mean,
But
really.
it's good.
and with that, I'll make a motion to accept that.
Yes. Are you fine with it as presented? Is there a
I'll
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you again.
You're welcome.
Any other comment? I mean, does anybody want to any comments you want to throw out over Volt? I guess it's just something that's all new to all of us. I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens.
Well, and there's action that has to happen while we wait.
Yeah.
Can't waiting to see what happens in a gray area just perpetuates the gray, right? So, to Joe's point, I do think that there needs to be some parallel discussions from the legislative
Right.
bodies within the town to, codify, if you will, the correct language now that is going to incorporate what we should be looking at is the digital age.
Yes,
Get that.
new category.
And the advertising that comes with it.
Yes.
Right? I mean, this is a precedent-setting presentation where a huge, in my opinion, a very large 55-inch digital sign is part of the application. I haven't seen that. I don't think you guys have either. And it's clear that our town code is a little unclear as to whether or not this is defined, using his word, as a sign or not.
Right, we got.
It's all a new ballgame for us.
Right, exactly.
Sign.
Sign.
A sign is a permanent structure or attached to a permanent structure. Digital or painted or lit. The only thing that the town didn't want was these neons
Right.
nonsense.
Yeah, but
Everything else is a sign.
so
is a
neon
permanent
was the
structure.
digital technology in the 1950s, right? Or
Digital
30s.
digital
Art Deco.
display, digital
Correct,
display.
but that was, but that's exactly, this is history repeating itself. The town said, oh, these bright neon lights, which is the new and up and coming technology. I think it was in the 30s during the Art Deco era. I'm not an architectural historian. And people said, whoa, that's bright, it's obnoxious, I don't like it, it's too big, it's too that. So there was an impetus there to create legislation to regulate, because what you don't want is neon signs everywhere.
Right.
And I believe that this is just a new era, right? From neon to electronic signs, which is
Signage up until now has been fixed. This is interactive.
right.
It's a digital display, but it's still a permanent structure. That
Yeah,
versus the post
Joe is actually
versus the poster in a butcher shop.
true,
That's
like
not a
in the
sign.
windows, like he was
Right.
talking.
That's
about.
not a sign. That's a
Well,
lot.
see, I don't know, right? I mean, if it was as I said, a 4x7 sign in a butcher shop window with
Okay, sale.
right. I mean, but here's the point. There's a rabbit hole you can go down if you start to read what structure means in your town too. And that's another thing that, again, I know what the arguments would be on both sides. Don't get me wrong. I'm saying that it twists and turns. There's a way to read the intent of what they were really trying to cover with such things. That I still think is complicated. And a 55-inch screen
Is a sign.
right. And I don't want to belabor it, but in that case, then so would a 6x9 poster be. And I don't think that's what your sign ordinance is talking about either. So
Is
I
it possible that it's just a new paradigm, and by trying to match it to what we all think of as a sign, that's where it's tripping up? It's just so different that we just kind of have to start with a blank sheet of paper, and
Yeah.
it's different.
Yeah. There's a saying in the law that bad facts make bad law. Because what happens when there's bad facts is that the judges or whoever's deciding the matter, in this case, it might be the Zoning Board of Appeals, right? They have to try to conform facts that don't really conform to some legal principle that was used once before. And in both cases, you're kind of working at odds with what would be the cleaner thing, which is to say what you mean. And as several of you have said tonight, you've got a paradigm shift in what it means to advertise now. And certainly for particular types of technology, it ought to be addressed. I mean, you're allowed to have opinions about what you want in your town, within reason, and it just ought to be intentionally looked at.
And I think also this is a moving target. It's going to change.
Mm.
So we could look back on ourselves in 3 years and say, what were we thinking?
Right.
So it's the idea that we think we're going to build that box and constrain it and control it the way we want. It's Pandora. It's going to come out again. And we'll
Wait till
change.
drones start
have to
flying
think
down
about
Main
it.
Street with
Hmm.
banners behind them,
Yeah.
because that's coming too. No, as someone in the aviation industry, I'm telling you that they're looking at multi-uses for drones, right? Including advertising. So that's another thing that we would have to look at, and to your point, it's going to always change.
Right. And I don't think that I've telegraphed any level of negativity toward this. I think I've been pretty open about thinking, it's a novel way of doing it. It's a different way of doing it. Is it perfect? No, but I'm very open to the possibilities. I'm not coming at this with a, no, it's wrong, or I'm really still forming my thoughts about it, and we get to see how things play out.
Looking in my refrigerator for something good, he doesn't seem so bad all of a sudden.
Yeah, don't. But I'll just put a period on the end of that sentence one more time. I hate to belabor it. I know it's late for all of us. But Vicky, to your point, it will change. But that's why a clearly defined set of parameters by the legislative body allows people to have intelligent conversations about, oh, well, is this change, let's say this variance that's being requested, does it make sense, right? Here's where it doesn't make sense, is for the planning board on a site-by-site basis to approve this or not approve that, or 55 is too big, but 37 is okay. That is where you get into, again, dangerous territory, unequal treatment, blah blah blah. It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to the applicants. So I don't mean your decisions won't be fair. I mean, it's not fair to an applicant to have to read the code and not know what they're supposed to do.
Mm.
Agreed.
You're right. All right. I make a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is September 14th, 2022.
Oh, I second.
All in favor? Thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night. Thanks,
Good night,
Joe.
Thank you.